Hello, hello, out there in YouTube land. I see we have some early voters in the poll already. I'm trying something new today, so if you have been in my live streams before, if you can please tell me whether this seems to make any difference. That's my problem with my microphone is it's too heavy. But is there a difference in hello, Line? Is there a difference in the sound? Uh when I use my microphone versus in the past, I have just been using I'm just gonna hold it. In the past, I've just been using my, microphone that's on my Mac Air, so I thought I would try I did a test and it didn't I couldn't tell the difference, but in the past, I've listened to re-listened to my lives, and it seems like there's maybe an echo, so maybe this will take out some of the echo. Welcome to the live stream today. Oh, we have 6 here. Thank you for being here. I think the mic on the Mac is the one that's on now. Really? It shows. Maybe that's why. It shows that, I mean, my receiver's plugged in and it shows the volume going up. So we'll see. You can still hear me okay, though, right? Regardless of what microphone is actually transmitting at the moment. So we have 50%, 40 oh, so we have a new vote. Yes, I can hear you and the sound is good. Perfect. Thank you. When you don't speak up, what are you most afraid of happening? And that's the reason you don't speak up. Being rejected and conflict or confrontation are tied at 40%, and being seen as too much or too needy is 20%. No one voting for hurting them. So this is what we're talking about today. Hi, GMB, Gina, right? I think I think that's your name. It was spelled differently. Gena or Genia. Is that right? Welcome. I'm happy to see you here again. Uh Brilliant. Well, thank you. Sometimes my memory when I need it to, right? I'm in postmenopause. I'm 63. So they say that nouns are the challenge, and it's so true. Nouns, just when I go to say something that I know what the word is, but it just won't come out. So wondering anybody else struggling with that or brain fog, right? Those are all things that I've gone through. Frozen shoulder, who knew that was a thing? Until after I had it, then I saw a post, and this is not the subject for today, but I saw a post someone put on Instagram or they sent out a newsletter talking about menopause symptoms or post-menopause symptoms, and that was the first time I'd ever seen frozen shoulder mentioned. It was a huge aha for me because that's what I went through, and I had both shoulders at the same time. So, washing my hair was very difficult because it was very painful. Brain fog, yes. I'm perimenopause. Yeah, the brain fog is a real thing. So, today we're talking about how relationships are impacted when we don't speak up. And I grew up thinking most of my life that I grew up thinking, and then that translated into, my adult life, but thinking that staying silent was the safer option. That I was taught that if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Right. And that translated into me thinking that like, how did I know what who made these nice rules? And so as a 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old, I was just guessing, is this a nice thing to say or not? And so then I would just take the safe route and not say anything at all. So I became this really quiet, shy kid, I guess, if you will, just wasn't confident in speaking what was on my mind. And, then I learned to not say things because I was afraid of hurting them. And that led me to believe that if I hurt them, I would be rejected. And then, of course, I had experiences of that happening in my life, which just further solidified that thought in my brain that, look, when I speak up, relationships end, friends get mad, you know, boyfriends leave, whatever. I also had this, I realized as an adult, but I had this as a kid, this really deep shame about things that I felt or thought about me or other people or things that had happened to me. And because we I didn't grow up in a family who talked about stuff, I developed shame around those things because I thought they were wrong and that made me wrong, that made me bad. And so I learned, and then it just became like this pattern to not speak up because, again, it just further solidified if I said something or admitted something that I thought was shameful about me, then for sure I would be rejected, right? Someone wouldn't like it and they would reject me for it. I'm wondering if anybody can relate to this. Do we have any more votes? Same votes. So I spent close to 55 years of my life not speaking up, not sharing the things that I felt. And I didn't, well, it was kind of twofold. I didn't realize that I could find a relationship eventually where the sharing is what would connect us stronger and what would help me develop that sense of confidence and that sense of acceptance for who I was and what I went through. I instead just thought that I can't share those things because I'll be rejected because of them. And so it was this vicious cycle of not being able to share things because I thought I would be rejected, but then being rejected or not learning, not growing as a person and in my confidence because I wasn't sharing. So again, it was just this cycle. Gina said, I was told I talked too much, but what it really was, people just didn't want to hear what I had to say. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Don't question me, right? Like kids should be seen and not heard, right? Um, yeah, and I don't I don't think for the most part that all of that was done maliciously. People just, our parents or caretakers or teachers or whoever they were, pastors, whoever they were just doing the best that they knew how and maybe acting within the patterns that they had learned and that they had been given, and maybe they weren't comfortable. Like my mom, I know, was not comfortable with my emotions. And we've talked about it now as me being an adult. Welcome to the live stream. Anybody coming in new, joining new, I'd love to know where you're joining from. I lost a good woman because I was too afraid to speak up. Oh, amazing. Tell me your name. So Hamverma. Um, yeah, tell me your name if you don't mind and where you're joining from. I would love to know. Yes, acting within social norms, right? And that's what our caregivers did, right? They were just doing what they were taught, and it just gets passed down, right? And so my mom wasn't comfortable with my emotions, and I was a very emotional kid, and I think that mostly came from me not being able to speak up. And so the way got I tried to get attention, and I think now as an adult, I can see back to that little girl that I was wanting someone to ask me, "What's the matter? Like, what happened? Why are you crying? Where are the tears coming from?" Right? Like, being with me and holding me and hearing me and seeing me, but instead, I just got shut down, but the tears didn't stop. Eventually, I think I learned to suppress them, but, like, all of this just went inside. I ended up having to go to the emergency room when I was in college because I had stomach pains so severe that they were just buckling me over. And now I can see that was my nervous system just in overdrive. It like was sending me a sign that you need to start speaking up, but I didn't know how. And by then, as a late teen, early 20s, I just thought that's the way life was. Lene said, I can relate. I voted afraid of being rejected. Hey, Soham, thank you for being here from India. That's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you being here, and you are always welcome. I go live every Wednesday at 2:22 Eastern Time. So come back next week and join in the conversation. While I'm speaking about that, about being wanting to feel seen and heard and held, right? I didn't need anybody necessarily to fix it, but I didn't feel heard because no one ever asked me. And I was afraid that if I spoke up, then because no one seemed to even notice that something was wrong, that maybe I wouldn't be believed. And so it just like sent me further down into that rabbit hole of silence. What I was going to say was, while I'm mentioning that, I created a new video that is going into the membership tomorrow, and it is about why we can't be kind to ourselves, more kind to ourselves. And I touch on this about our little child just wanting to be heard and seen and held when we were young. And if we weren't, then we developed these coping mechanisms to try and get seen or heard, right? And maybe that was coping mechanisms or numbing ourselves, coping mechanisms as adults, acting out or, numbing with alcohol or drugs or things like that. We developed coping mechanisms to numb these hurts, these patterns that were developing in us, like not feeling seen, not feeling heard. So that video is going live in the membership tomorrow. I would love for you to check out the membership if it sounds like something you're interested in. There are a few videos in there already. It's $6 a month. You can come for a month or stay for a year. It's all up to you. But that's where I go deeper dive into some of these subjects that I just um, that come up for me or for you in comments or in the chat here in live streams, and they just deserve a deeper dive. So if you are ready to deeper dive, you can go join that. You can click the join button. It gives you more information, and then you can make the decision from there. We have more votes, but being rejected is the one being voted for the most. So I guess you all can relate to me that that being rejected, yeah, was a core fear, right? And part of that came from if we were rejected as kids, like, um, what's the word I want? Like primally, we feared not surviving, right? We relied on our caretakers and the people in our lives to keep us alive, basically. That was their job, right? Because as a 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old, maybe a 10-year-old, but as a young child, we didn't have the coping strategies, we didn't have the skills necessarily to keep ourselves alive. So we depended on them. So these coping mechanisms that we ended up developing were ways of survival. And so being rejected was a core primal fear because that was the fear of our ancestors long ago. If they were rejected out of their tribe, right, they possibly wouldn't survive, man or woman. So it is definitely a core fear. Hi, Becca. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you being here. I guess rejection is my fear, but really I just assume I'll be ignored and that there's not really a point to it. Learned helplessness is the term. I like your comment. Yes, so we learn helplessness. Absolutely. How like what and I'm just curious throwing this out there. Do you remember a time thinking, and this is for anyone listening, that like logically thinking I'll just be ignored, so I won't speak up? Like for me, I don't remember ever thinking I wouldn't be believed, right? But that's the little kid logic brain that we have that we we just develop these truths about ourselves. You develop the truth that you would just be ignored. So what's the point, right? I developed this truth that I wouldn't be believed. So why risk it, right? And then we grow up into adults, and unless we investigate these these truths that we've taken on, then we live our lives out from that place of thinking, what's the point? Or, and I invite you to look at, are there other areas in your life where you don't speak up, maybe at work or with friends or whoever, your partner, your kids, your parents? Is there a place now, currently in your life, because typically it follows us into adulthood, where you think, what's the point? I'll just stay silent because what's the point? No one's going to hear me anyway, right? For me, no one's going to believe me. And that's why all three of my marriages, I stayed silent in them until I was out of them with other people. Like, I didn't tell other people that I was struggling. I didn't tell people that my third husband was emotionally abusing me. I didn't tell other people the shit that he was pulling on me, right? Because I still was carrying that fear of no one's going to believe me. Why would they believe me? Why would they question, well, why in the hell did you marry him to begin with if you knew he was like that, right? I didn't want to hear that. All I wanted to know is that I would be heard and seen and loved anyway, right? And so we go into adulthood carrying this kid logic that we developed that helped us survive and stay safe and not be rejected, because being rejected for me in particular was what it boiled down to. It looks like we have more votes, but still, like, being rejected is the core wound, right? Um yeah, learned helplessness is the term, I think you said. Typo. Yeah, gotcha. I got you. Um yes, and I think I will do a video on that, learned helplessness, because that's a really good um I've heard people, talk about that before. So, what do we do with all of this? Awareness as I say, in most every time I'm talking about something new, awareness is the first key to changing anything, because without awareness, it's like someone driving in our blind spot, right? We can't do anything about them if we don't know that they're there. And so this kid logic that we've brought forward into our adult lives, we can't do anything about it unless it's there. So I appreciate you being here in this live stream, because this is what I like to do, is help open up new awarenesses for people that make them go, wow, I never thought of that before. And again, like Beck, I would invite you and anybody else, like, to look at, where are you bringing forward something that you thought as a kid and it's playing out now in your adult life, and how is that impacting your adult life? Because that's what we're talking about today. Staying silent created, or you stayed silent because you just thought, I'll be ignored, and really, what's the point, right? How is that impacting that belief? How is that impacting your relationships today? Because I guarantee, unless you've completely healed it and you don't stay silent anymore, it is impacting your relationships. Multi-sunflower. I love sunflowers. Thanks for being here. I have distanced myself from people who don't see me or hear me because they really didn't care. Speaking up made no difference. Okay, I hear you on that. Um, it's not other people's responsibility to to be the first ones to see us and to hear us. I had a big realization a couple of years ago, and that is this: until I fully see and accept myself, I will not feel it from other people. I will not be able to accept it from them. I won't be able to receive it from them. So, working on me and seeing myself, holding and hearing and witnessing that inner child myself, hearing her, seeing her, believing her, I realized I didn't believe myself. I started not believing myself. So, how can I expect someone else to believe me when I was acting from a place of not even believing myself? So, it's like this, it's just this big ball of yarn, right? That we have to start pulling the strings to unravel it. It's not going to unravel all at once, but this is a string that I figured out I needed to pull, right? How am I not accepting myself? How am I not seeing myself? How am I not holding and witnessing myself? Once I started doing that, once I started accepting who I was for what I was, and I took off all the masks that I was wearing and stopped pretending that I was whatever that person wanted and whatever that person wanted and whatever that person wanted, some crap started going down. Like, my husband stormed out in a rage on New Year's Day. That was one thing. And then 2 years later, I got fired from my job. But I believe now those things happened mostly because I stopped letting other people control my life. I started accepting me for who I was. I started speaking up. I started not just acquiescing and bending to every little thing that people did. And I started not trying to always appear perfect and have all my shit together, because I don't, right? But that perfectionism and that um like demeaning myself was actually harming my relationships. Becca, I have to go, but I'm subscribing and coming back to hear more, and I plan to listen more. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. And I hope to see you soon in comments and videos. Again, I don't know if I said this, but I have, as soon as this live stream ends, I will have a new video coming out on my main channel this afternoon. So it's almost noon my time, where I am. I'm in Phoenix. But and then I have a new video coming out tomorrow in the Inner Circle membership. So again, if you'd like to join the membership to get deeper dive videos, that's there. You can join for a month and try it out, and stay for a year if that's what you want. Lene said, sometimes I think my husband will think my idea about something will be wrong, stupid, weird, anything negative. But then when I bring it up, he'll listen to me and the fear I had was from my past. Exactly, right? It's just that old, it's the old stories that we believe about ourselves to be true. And I think it's I think it's so interesting how we how we hold on to the negative stories, right? Those, like you just said, Line, about he'll think you're wrong or stupid or weird, right? The negative part. Why do we hold on to those stories of our past and not the stories of where we were excited, we did a good job, we're proud of ourselves, whatever. I mean, I can answer that question is partially because we're negatively biased. We just have it's human nature to have a negativity bias, and that goes back to caveman cavewoman days where they had to be on alert in order to stay safe, in order to stay alive. And so that's part of it. And then there is a book called, I don't know if I have it up here, but What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I have the link down in the description of this video, this live stream. It's buried in, I have a list of books down there that have really impacted my life. You'll find it though, What to Say When I Talk to Myself. And he talks about, Shad Helmstetter, he talks about how he has gone around and spoken to audiences, and he always asks the question, how many of you can remember times that you were talked to, that you were told no, that you were told that's not going to work for you, that's weird, that's strange, that's dumb, right? How many times do you remember being told that as a kid? And everybody raises their hand in audiences of thousands of people. Everybody, almost without fail, raises their hand. Then when he asked them, and how many of you remember being told, I'm proud of you. You did such a great job. That was amazing. How many of you were told that? Very few hands go up. So the amount of times, and I think he says like 14, we've heard, no, you can't do that. That's not possible for you. That won't work. We've heard that thousands of times by the time we're 18. And he said, I can basically count on one hand the number of times that I heard a positive thing in those same 18 years. So the negative against the positive is so unequal, and that's why we carry forward these stories about the negative and not the positive, like, oh my gosh, I've run 3 marathons, I've done I traveled across country when I was 20, right? I'm not holding on to those things. I'm not living in those stories nearly as much as I live in the stories of 3 failed marriages, and right? And so it's just, it's human nature, I believe, to bring up the negative and, like Lene said, to think something will be wrong or stupid or weird, anything negative, right? Again, going back to the awareness, it's the awareness of that. Once we become aware of it, then when you go to your husband with an idea about something, say, "Wait, if I think this is stupid," or, that voice comes up, that critical, that analytical inner critic, say, which is not you, by the way. That is just a voice. It's just a thought, and your thoughts aren't who you are. So if you can recognize that you're getting, anxious about bringing it up to him or what he's going to say or whatever, then ask yourself, wait, is this based on evidence that I have that that's what he does to me? Because that's a different story, right? If he does say that's stupid, or which I know he doesn't, Lena, but if he does say that, that's that's a different story. That's a different thing we need to look at, right? I tolerated that kind of stuff, telling me I was selfish, that the people at work didn't didn't respect me, that my mom didn't love me, that my niece didn't love me. Like, he told me some really cruel things that I started believing. So, my point is, if you're hearing that voice, is it just a past story from a belief that you had as a child? Or is it something that needs to be addressed in the present? That's not what we're talking about today, but I wanted to bring up that there is a difference, and many times, like with my now ex who was emotionally abusing me, I would downplay what he was saying because I would go back to the old story and think, "Oh my gosh, he's right. I am selfish. Am I selfish for doing that?" And it could have been the silliest things, but those old stories, like, reared up, and the inner critic was like, "See? He's right. You are selfish. You are, you know, whatever, too sensitive. You are not respected." And so being able to separate, wait, is this a truth that comes from something true, or is this just a story that I've lived in so long that I believe it's true? We have 20 people here watching. That's awesome. Thank you for being here. Um, Multi Sunflower said, I accepted crappy behavior from people close to me, and I accept myself now and do not want to be around crappy people. Awesome. Awesome. I don't replay stories, but I refuse to be treated badly. That's amazing. Um, that's where we all strive to be, right? Like, recognizing, is this person serving me in my life, right? Is what they're bringing adding to my life? And if not, is it something that I want to keep tolerating in my life? Okay, well, you can have your thoughts about that. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to keep going on with what I have. So, what ends up happening, and we've kind of already addressed this, is that that small stuff, the things that we ignore, end up compounding, right? If I say I'm fine when they ask, mm, someone healthy, right, they may stop asking because they think that I'm telling the truth, and that's what we're talking about, is how we can. Oh, hello there, insight and awareness. Back on, is it Kamano Island? I'm not sure where the accent is. Lene said, "My ex-husband taught me that I was the problem, and if I had a problem about anything, it was my own problem, right? And I should just deal with it myself." Right. Absolutely, and that's why he's now your ex, right? I hear you. Right? So we teach people, other people, how to treat us. And so, Lene, like with you, you accepted it at first, right? And then you came to a point where you no longer accepted it. And I can totally relate because I did the same thing. But we teach people how to treat us. Maybe we laugh it off, which teaches them that it's okay to do that. We have lots of people in here. My wife asked me to share my thoughts and feelings. Oftentimes, she said that she feels unsafe when I do. I don't know what the right thing to do is. Um, Let me think about that for a minute. And I had the same issue with my recent ex-boyfriend. Is that the same person saying that? No. Um, I think I would invite you to ask her what it is in what you're sharing that feels unsafe, because I'm assuming you don't want her to feel unsafe with you, right? That is an assumption I'm going to make. And allow her to share with you if she feels unsafe to do that, then I would invite you to find a therapist that you can go to together so that you can explore this, what makes her feel unsafe. We all have core. So, Mike Foster wrote a book called The Seven Primal Questions. I am a certified primal question coach, and there are seven primal questions. One of them is, am I safe? So, depending on how she grew up, she maybe grew up with the primal question that she now goes through her life with asking, am I safe? Maybe it's in the way that you're sharing. Maybe it's the words you're using. Maybe somehow you are putting her on the defensive with how you're sharing. I don't know, right? Because I don't know the situation. Absolutely, people need to go through pain to heal. We all have stuff that we go through. Oh, your ex-boyfriend acted like you didn't matter at all and everything I said was ignored. I felt invisible to him. Well, again, I'm happy that he's your ex. So, what was I saying? Um, that's what I would suggest to you. You can go on to primalquestion.com is the website, and there's a free assessment there. You can both take the assessment and see what your primal question is. I've worked with couples in coaching them to determine what their primal question is, to find out, how am I answering your primal question with a no or a maybe? Because that then puts them into their scramble. It makes them develop behavior, or not develop, but engage in behaviors that will turn that no or a maybe into a yes, because that is what we're seeking, is to get our primal question answered with a yes. Not directly, but unconsciously. This is all in the unconscious. Yeah, absolutely. But we're here, I believe, to live the happiest, most fulfilling life that we can, to evolve and to expand and grow. So if we just ignore these issues, then that's not allowing me to expand and grow. If I was ignoring my issues because I was resolved that they were never going to be any different, then I probably would still be married to a narcissist, or I still would be married to, and I'm not blaming them. That was me coming into those relationships, staying silent. I attracted them because of my patterns. And so I'm no longer willing to continue on in relationships, even the relationship with myself, where it doesn't serve me, where I'm not living to my fullest potential. Okay, well, I'm not going to, like that's a completely different topic that I'm not a therapist, I'm not, a psychologist, and so, yeah, I'm not gonna speak to that. My high school sweetheart and I have remained friends, but recently I was incredibly rude to her multiple times. I thought I was venting, now I realize I was being a jerk. What can be done? Go back and repair, apologize, tell her what you thought, that you realized that's not how you want to carry forward with your relationship. That's fairly simple. Um, my friend who's close to me kept me sane because it felt like I was going crazy. The gaslighting was intense. Yes, it is. It is very, very, very harmful, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and I'm happy that you had a friend close to you that you could share with and, help keep you sane. So, let's get back to the topic on hand. Relationships fail when we don't speak up. And not that we're off topic, but what happens when we don't speak it up is we end up trying to manage their feelings instead of sharing our own, right? And they decide who you are based on what you share about yourself. So if you're sharing inauthentically, which would be not speaking up, would be one way that you could share inauthentically, or, you know, masking over things that you believe about yourself, not being open, not being vulnerable. That's sharing inauthentically. Then they decide who you are based on who they think you are, right? Based on what you're sharing with them or not sharing with them. I feel like the buzzwords like narcissist are thrown around for clickbait. Well, not here. I've been in it. And yes, it is true that some people can use it that way, but that's not how I'm using it. After cutting a narcissist friend off and they are expecting a resolution conversation, do you continue with silence or attempt a conversation? A narcissist friend? No, I would not. I would go no contact and not continue. You don't owe them, um, you don't owe them a resolution conversation, period. That's my opinion and that's my experience. The only way I was able to break free of my narcissist husband was to go no contact. That was the only way my nervous system and the hormones that the right, we get addicted to that. Not not purposefully, not consciously, right? But we get hormonally addicted to that type of behavior. So the only way I was able to heal that and to break free of that was to go no contact and not be in that energy anymore. And it worked for me. But it took over a year. It took over a year, but I had no contact with him whatsoever except through email. No contact works well. Yes. Feels like it hurts me more than them, so I'm struggling with it. Strong empath here. Yes. Well, it probably does hurt, right? Because you're maybe going through grief of recognizing that that person wasn't your relationship wasn't what you thought it was, right? That that person wasn't who you thought they were. That the relationship you hoped for in the future was not going to happen. There's a grief to that, right? And it does hurt. It I guess I would ask you or invite you to think, what does it matter who's hurting more? This is not a contest about who's more hurt, right? It seems like and I want to create a video on this. I have so many video ideas on how we think we want closure, right? But closure is not what we want. We want validation. We want someone to come to us and say, or I did, I'll speak for myself. I wanted him to come to me and say, "You're right. I was treating you horribly." And mean it and own it, right? And take responsibility for himself. That's what I wanted. I didn't truly I wasn't looking for closure, I was looking for validation. That keeps us stuck because validation from external is like a sugar rush. We get it and then we need more. We eat the sugar and then we want more sugar. It's just it's just the way it is. Validation is closure is not what you're seeking, validation is. And I would ask you what that serves you. Like, how does that help you? I asked a counselor that I have a video on my channel that the thumbnail says narcissistic abuse, my story. I tell the whole story in there. I encourage you to go watch it if that's a question. But I had a random run in with a therapist like a week after he stormed out on me. And I didn't know she was a therapist. I didn't, it was just like this godsend of a person. And she asked me what was going on. I told her, and I talk about this in that video. But I asked her that same question, "Can they change?" And she said, very seldom, because most of them don't recognize what they're doing, or if they do, they don't, um, they don't think it's wrong. They're getting their own internal core need met, right? They have their own primal question that they grew up with, and they just developed these coping mechanisms to deal with it in a way that's not very beneficial to anyone, right? But my people pleasing behaviors also were not beneficial to people. They weren't harmful in the way that narcissistics an NPD, a narcissist someone with oh my gosh, narcissistic personality disorder, that their behaviors are very different, but they're very harmful, but so are a people pleaser's behaviors. So, was something that I had to come to terms with is that we're not that different. We're all narcissists and people pleasers were struggling to be heard, to be seen, to be loved. They're just going about it in a very different way, and a way that is typically much more harmful than a people pleaser. That's kind of a tough pill to swallow, right? Afraid to lose others loses himself first. Yeah, absolutely. So if a narcissist admits they were wrong and wants to do the work, that only involves your validation? No, that's not what I meant. I'm not sure how I how that got misconstrued. If they want to change, sure, it's probably like any, um it's a behavior. It's a behavior that they've developed over time, right? The problem is that most of them don't recognize what they're doing. One thing that I heard that speaking of narcissists, and then we'll go back to the live stream and wrap it up. One thing that I heard about narcissists that was such an eye opener for me, but also was felt really sad to me, is that they despise themselves so much inside, right? They have no self acceptance. So they despise themselves so much. that they find another person in their life, like my husband did me, who they put their traits on. Like, he would call me selfish, he would belittle me and tell me things about that he thought about me, right? But what this person said was that they basically make you into them, or them into you, so that they can demolish you, hoping they will demolish their own inner demons. So, in putting their behaviors and their thoughts about themselves, their just dismissal of themselves, their harsh, I can't even think of the strongest word that I want, just their uh, complete, what's the word? Somebody tell me in the comments. Yes, basically they're projecting what they that's not the word I was thinking of, but they're projecting what they despise about themselves, all the things they despise about themselves. They're projecting them on the other person, and then they set out to destroy that other person. They start to devalue you, they start to put you down, they start to maybe physically threaten you. They start to mentally and emotionally, spiritually threaten you, to diminish you, and basically kill you, like to destroy who you are as a person in order to feel good about themselves, because they think they have displaced their inner demons into you, and then they're going to destroy you. That will destroy their inner demons. That's what I heard someone say, and I was like, I was shocked, because he alluded very openly, which maybe isn't alluding. He said very openly to me in a argument about something. Again, go watch that video. Something about, I don't remember the argument. It wasn't even an argument. It was a discussion, but about which ice cream flavor is better, right? That's how simple it was, vanilla or chocolate. And we were disagreeing on whatever it was. And I finally said to him, why can't you just accept that we have differences, right? I like vanilla, you like chocolate. And he looked at me, stared at me with these, like, his eyes just became really dark. And he said, because we're not different, we're the same. It gives me goosebumps now. It scared me so bad. And then I heard this person say that a few weeks after he had told me that, and the impact of that hit me. Oh my gosh. Like, he was already it's like somebody stealing your identity, right? They're projecting themselves onto you in order to, like, demolish what they hate about themselves. That's what they think will happen. No, he didn't realize he was doing that. That was his inner demons talking, right? I I can see now, like, that wasn't him. That wasn't the little boy, right? It wasn't the 3-year-old. He wasn't born that way. I don't believe that. He learned it over time as a coping mechanism. It was scary. It was really scary. Yikes is right. Love bombing, devalue, and discard is the cycle. Exactly. Exactly. You have definitely lived it. Super nice to strangers, but super negative and hurtful to those closest. Yeah, they project their negativity. Yes, okay. They need to be your parent, and they need you to be their parent as well. Shared fantasy. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so when we don't speak up, this is where this all started, and I don't know how it devolved down into, although it was great conversation and great chat. So um I appreciate you speaking up. Oh, now we have different votes. So now we have somebody voting for, votes on all of them, but still being rejected is the biggest one. And that is a core fear of the human dynamic, is being rejected is one of two core fears that that most of us have. And again, it goes back to caveman, cavewoman days. So, in a fairly healthy relationship, could be with a friend, whatever, but if you're people pleasing by not speaking up, what can actually happen is you are slowly eroding trust with that person. Then when you do finally speak up, maybe you explode first, but maybe you speak your truth after years of not speaking your truth, like I did with my second husband. We had been married for 17 years, and I came to him and said, "If I'm going to feel alone, I would rather be alone." He probably somewhat wasn't completely shocked by that, but after 17 years, basically, of not speaking my truth, that was like a huge bomb to him, I'm sure. And now they feel lied to because you've gone through this relationship not speaking your truth. And that right, that's never going to benefit a relationship to feel lied to, whether you're on the receiving or the giving end of that, right? And then never saying anything, never speaking up becomes the normal. It just becomes right, and then you get to be 63 like me, and you're like, "Who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore because I haven't spoken my truth. I've worn a mask for so long. I don't even know who I am anymore." So, no honesty, like not speaking up, and we don't have to we can speak up things that hurt us in a kind way, right? We don't have to retaliate with hurt because that's not going to be helpful. We can speak up in a kind way in order to get resolution. Like somebody said earlier, how do I resolve that with my friend who vented? I think that's what you said, right? Like go back and say, "Oh my gosh, I realized that that probably hurt. If that had come toward me, at me, that would have hurt and I would have been pissed," right? Whatever. But speak from you, I, not when you did that, that hurt me, right? I, whatever. I feel sad. I feel, um, if we can say I feel whatever the feeling is, not I feel like you, blah, 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 because that's not a feeling, that's a thought, that's a projection onto them. I feel sad. I feel dismissed. I feel hurt. I feel happy. I feel whatever, right? We are so used to not sharing our feelings, um, probably because we weren't taught to share our feelings. So then there's an identity cost to not speaking up. We lose track of, or maybe we never even figure out what we think and what we feel, and that it's okay to think weird thoughts. Somebody said, some author said, if I don't remember who it was, if you knew all the thoughts I had in my head, like I would be in jail, right? If I was condemned for all the thoughts that I had, because we have weird thoughts, right? But our thoughts are not who we are. They're just thoughts. They're just words. They're just energy. It's when we grab onto them and hold onto them that that's what ends up hurting us, because then we create stories about these thoughts that we think are who we are. So, how do we break out of this? Notice where you're being quiet. As I said to someone else, and now I won't be able to remember what I said. I invite you to, oh, what was it I said early on? I invite you to, oh, like figure out, where am I staying silent because I'm afraid I'll be ignored. So I allow that fear of being ignored, I allow that to keep me silent, right? Instead of testing it out. Wait, is that just a story I'm telling myself that I'm going to be ignored? Let's see what happens if I speak up. Um, and remember, that speaking up is a skill. If we didn't learn it and we've lived the majority of our lives not speaking up, we have to start practicing it. It's like learning to play the piano. You're not going to learn to play and be good at it when you sit down at it one time. So we have to do the reps. And as soon as this live stream gets done, there's going to be a video going live on in my channel, just a regular video that I'm talking about um how we have to do the reps, right? And I'm talking about how I recently went through something where someone said to me, "Well, that's disappointing," which was core, my biggest people pleasing hurdle to overcome was the fear of disappointing people. And so when she said that to me, this video tells you like what I went through and just yeah, I won't give any more away than that. It seems like he would force me into an argument just to push me away. Um, so you can stand in your power, right? If he starts pushing an argument, then say, I'm not going to have this conversation right now. Let's cool down. Let's, whatever. And reconvene on this conversation tomorrow, right? Like you have the right to set boundaries. I'm not going to stay in this conversation if you're going to talk to me that way, and then act on those boundaries. As people pleasers, we didn't we didn't have boundaries. Like I'll speak for myself. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't think I had the right to have boundaries. I didn't think it was right to have boundaries. I thought it was mean. I thought I would be a bitch. I thought it was aggressive that women who had boundaries were aggressive. So I learned to not have boundaries, right? And that's part of speaking up is having boundaries, knowing where you begin, where you stop, or where they stop and you start, right? That's a boundary. And you don't have to take on their energy. So if he pushes you into an argument, what's your boundary around that? I'm not going to sit here while you're upset. If you can talk to me calmly, we can stay in this conversation. It may be somebody that you've allowed that for so long that they think that's how they're going to get you to back down, and that's what most of us have done, right? As people pleasers, we're the one that back down. We're the ones that give in. We're the ones that avoid the conflict because we don't want that discomfort. And the discomfort is coming from that fear of being rejected. So just realizing that it's a fear, it's a story that you've told yourself so long. Again, speaking up is a skill. So, what if you said what was true for you? Your relationships are going to change, most of them in a better way. Some of them will dissolve when you start speaking your truth because the other person was in your life taking advantage of you not speaking your truth. Self acceptance grows, self respect grows. Those two things are a given. When you start speaking up for yourself, I guarantee self acceptance will grow, self respect will grow. Always. When you start setting boundaries, when you start saying what's okay with you and what's not okay with you, those two things, along with self love, will absolutely grow. No questions. No questions at it at all. Brene Brown, who is an author that I love, she's a researcher in human development. If you don't know who she is, I recommend you check her out. But she says that true belonging only happens when we present our authentic selves. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Ooh, I just got chills. Our sense of belonging, our sense of not being rejected can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So if you aren't accepting yourself, whatever the level whatever the level that you are accepting yourself at, you will never be able to feel like you belong higher than that level. That's like your ceiling. So if you can raise your self-acceptance ceiling, you will raise your sense of belonging. And you will raise your sense of self-acceptance. You will lower the fear of being rejected. So speaking up isn't the risk. Staying silent is what is the ultimate risk. And another one from Brené Brown, and I'll close with this. True belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater. Wait, that's basically the same one, and I thought I had two separate ones. Sorry about that. Oh, fitting in is about, oh, this is the one I wanted to say earlier. So I basically, um, I'll tell you the one I said that I wanted to say earlier. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. That's what I did for most of my life, right? Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. And then back to that one. True belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. I appreciate you so much being here. I go live every Wednesday at 2:22. There are more deeper dive videos in the Inner Circle membership. If that feels like it calls to you, you can click the join button below and get more information on it and then make a decision from there. It's $6 a month. You can stay for a month, stay for a year, stay as long as you want. It's a way for me to support you in doing deeper work. And it's a way for you to support me in continuing to do this work here on YouTube. So I appreciate you being here. I will see you if you're in the US. Happy Independence Day and 250th anniversary of our country. Lene said, "Thank you, Heidi. I enjoyed this very much." I appreciate you being here so much. And thank you, Multi Sunflower. What is your name, Multi Sunflower? I would love to know if you care to share it. I think I developed a bad attitude along the way. I recently had a wake-up call and it's been humbling. Yes, the fear of conflict. If you're still here, I have a video on my regular channel. My most recent video is on the fear of conflict, 4 things that we have to stop doing, because it is killing our respect from other people. So go check out that video on the channel. Thanks, Gina, for being here. I appreciate it. Tara. Tara, is that how you say it? Tara. With a long A, Tara. Thank you so much for being here, Multi-Sunflower. Okay, I appreciate you being here. Have a great rest of your day. Again, if you're in the US, happy 4th of July, and Canada, today's Canada Day if you're watching from there. Long A, Tara. Okay, great. Have a great one. See you next week or in the comments of any videos. Have a great one.